A lot of countries in Africa, including Ghana, has been working hard to decenter the US dollar as the most important currency of their national economy health. And the IMF does not like that. And so the IMF is at odds with Ghana when it comes to our national development priorities, specifically our fiscal policies. And I'll explain to you the history of the US dollar becoming the most important currency in Ghana and why IMF wants it to remain that way. All right. Before I do that, my name is Senabi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics from the perspective of an African. So if you're interested in intellectual conversations, subscribe to this channel. Now, let's get right into it. Let me start by adding something to a video I made earlier. So in my video talking about the fact that the Bank of Ghana wanted to change the policy, the domestic gold purchase policy, I left out an information I wanted to add. It's not a big deal, but you know, Bank of Ghana said that the deal or contract Bank of Ghana signed with the PMMC under the Akufo-Addo administration is the reason for the $240 million loss IMF detected. And Bank of Ghana forgot to add that the first deputy governor of Bank of Ghana, Dr. Zakari Mumuni, went to London in August 2025, this year, and praised that policy. Actually, there was a Convert 25 conference that happened in London, and the title of the conference was Rethinking Commodity Finance. And Bank of Ghana praised the domestic gold purchase policy at that conference. The theme of the conference was, what Ghana is doing is so good, let's praise it. So now that IMF have detected some mistakes in the policy, you can't turn around and say the policy that we praised in August, yeah, it was a bad policy. Did you think it was a bad policy before IMF came out and said it was a bad policy? Anyway, I'll get back to this point at the end of this video. Before we get to it, let's start with history, right? We know that the IMF and World Bank, which are known as the Bretton Woods institutions, were founded with one objective. After World War II ended, all the countries in the world were basically devastated. And the world realized that we have fought 2 wars in less than 30 years. And the wars have not been good for the world. So in order to prevent a third world war, let's start a movement that would bring the world together. And what brings the world together? Money. And so the World Bank and IMF were started with one main aim. The aim was to globalize the world's economy. Because if the whole world does business with each other, we'll have less incentive to engage in another war. And so when it comes to the main objective of IMF and World Bank, which is to end world wars, we would say they've been successful at that, right? Good. However, when IMF was founded, there was a problem. The problem is, before World War I, the whole world's economy was run on gold. So if you are from one country and you wanted to buy commodities in another country, you would change your currency, you use your currency to buy gold, and then use the gold to go and buy the commodity from that other country. So the main ingredients or the main currency for global trade was gold. However, during the World War II and getting to the end of the World War II, the US had accumulated about 70% of all gold mined in the world. Yeah, the US had a reserve of 70% of the whole world's gold. And so America basically controlled the main ingredient or the main currency of the global trade. So how can IMF get the US to part with some of its gold for the rest of the world? They came up with a strategy. And the strategy was that the whole world should use the US dollar as the currency for global trade. Remember, IMF and World Bank were also founded in the US. So it was an easy decision for them to make that let's use the US dollar as the main currency for global trade. And then the dollar will be pegged against, what was the name? The gold. So I believe it was $25 per ounce of gold was what the dollar was pegged at. And so every currency in the world was pegged against the US dollar, and the US dollar was pegged against gold. You understand that? And so that was the global system that existed from 1944, 1945, thereabout, until 1971. And in 1971, the US president at the time, President Nixon, reversed the gold standard. So the US currency dollar was no longer pegged against gold, because the US no longer holds 70% of the world's gold. So the US felt like, the whole world is using our dollar now, and we no longer need gold to prove to the world to use our dollar. So let's do away with the gold standard. And then the US dollar became a fiat currency. So now the only thing that the US dollar is based on is, trust me, I got this. That is the whole world's economy is based on, the US telling the world that we are going to make sure that we stay successful as a country. And so the US dollar has been the world's currency since after World War II until now. And now, US government policies have been making the US dollar more volatile. Before then, from the 1980s to 2007, I believe, the US had one chair of the Federal Reserve. I believe his name was Greenspan, Alan Greenspan, yeah. Greenspan was the chair of the US Forex Reserve, which is like the US central bank that controls the US dollar. And so there was stability with the US dollar. And when Greenspan resigned or retired in 2007, the US economy crashed in 2008. So basically, from 2008, we realized that the US is also a vulnerable country. So that is when the whole world started moving away from using the US dollar as the standard of the world's economy. And we have the BRICS countries coming up and everything. And for the past, I believe, 10 to 15 years, African countries have been trying to also move away from the US dollar to a system where we get to decide which currency we want to use. But most African countries are export-based countries. Specifically, let's talk about Ghana. Ghana's economy since independence has been structured around export. We export gold, we export cocoa, and these days we export oil. So these three commodities, because they are export-heavy commodities, Ghana's economy relies a lot on exports. And because the US dollar is the currency for global trade, Ghana's economy relies so much on the US dollar. And I would say, even before Akufo-Addo became president, but I'll give him credit for that, from Akufo-Addo to Mahama to Ghana has been trying to move from an export of raw material based economy to an economy that also does something for itself domestically. And one of the things that Ghana put into place was the domestic gold purchase program. The domestic gold purchase program is a good program because Ghana is basically purchasing gold with our local currency. It's important to note that Ghana purchase of the gold is based on a law that was passed in 2006. So it means that Ghana has been thinking for a long time about doing better with our economy when it comes to exports, right? And so when the exchange program or the domestic gold purchase program was instituted in 2021, Ghana started purchasing gold from PMMC with the local currency. And there's a reason for that. Because gold is transacted within Ghana, even in dollars, it means that the demand for dollar in Ghana is high. So if you're a gold dealer in Ghana, you needed dollars. And so you have to buy a dollar. And because the circulation of dollar was high in Ghana, because gold, cocoa, and oil are the three things our economy relied on, the Ghana cedi was weak and the US dollar keep getting stronger and stronger. And so what do we do to arrest them? So the domestic gold purchase program has multiple benefits for the country. One of the benefits is that it reduces the demand for the US dollar within Ghana. You understand that? And that is getting our currency stronger. So the Ghana city have been getting stronger for some time now. And why is IMF not happy with this? Because of the strengthening of the Ghana cedi, Ghana could someday get to a point where we will not necessarily rely on IMF for everything anymore. That is a reason that can be cited. But a reason that I can confirm is globalization. IMF likes globalization. Even though current US President Trump, America first worldview is different from IMF globalization worldview. IMF loves globalization, right? And so IMF want to keep the world economy globalized. Me personally, people think I'm a globalist, but I'm not. I'm an internationalist. Internationalist is different from globalist in the sense that I want Ghana to be a sovereign country, but I don't want Ghana to be an isolationist country. I want Ghana to do business with the rest of the world. That's the difference between an internationalist and a globalist. IMF is a globalist body. They want the whole world to be like one. Because, like I remember I told you that IMF, one of the functions, one of the reasons they exist is to ensure that there's global trade so that there's no World War III. And now countries like the US, Russia, and China are threatening each other with nuclear weapons. But the only reason why US, China, and Russia will not drop nuclear weapons on each other is because they do business with each other, right? And so as African countries are getting to a point where we are not relying on the US dollar anymore, it gets in the way of IMF's globalization agenda. I am not anti-globalization agenda. I am not pro-globalization agenda. I'm just laying the fact bare for you that Ghana has agenda as a country. IMF has an agenda as an institution. Ghana's agenda and IMF agenda are at odds. That is why IMF will not like the domestic gold purchase program. However, when I was in high school, St. Peter's, there's something we used to call live your life like Jesus. So maybe I am a Form 1 boy, a Form 3 boy asks me for sugar, and I don't have sugar. I don't give him the sugar. He can't punish me for not having sugar. So what he will tell me is, you live like Jesus Christ. Because if I catch you breaking any rule, you'll be in trouble. And you cannot live like Jesus Christ. You break a rule, so you'll be in trouble. That is the issue here, right? If Ghana did not give IMF a reason to attack their domestic gold purchase program, they wouldn't have done it. You understand? So IMF, does not want Ghana city to do well. But if our program was working effectively, they wouldn't have had a good reason to come after us, right?
Sorry. What are you recording for?
For myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I normally don't hear, but like small managers here, he had asked me to see what you're recording for. You just need, if you're gonna like record a video, you just need permission from mall management.
Yeah, he told me, I spoke to him earlier this morning, and he told me that as long as I don't show the name of the stores, that's okay. And so my camera is facing this way, it's not facing the names of the store.
Who did you talk to?
I don't know his name, but he told me he's a manager over here.
You don't know his name?
No,
Do you know what he looks like?
it's a white guy.
He's a white guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just to be clear, because I don't want to get in trouble.
All right, sure, I feel you. That's okay. Yeah. All right. So, I spoke to the manager of the mall before recording this morning, but I believe that the security guy is just doing his job. So, let me conclude by saying this. Bank of Ghana does not have to Bank of Ghana does not have to stop the program just because it made a mistake. When you make a mistake, right, you correct the mistake and move on. The domestic gold purchase program is a good program. It's a program that is working effectively to the benefit of Ghanaians, and it's helping our economy stabilize a bit. right? We made some mistakes because, of course, it's a new program. It's been in existence since 2021. That's what I mean by it's a new program. And when you have a program that is that young, you will need to work at it to get it to be a good program, right? You make mistakes when you start a business, right? Like right now, when I'm recording my video, somebody came to interact. You make mistakes. I've been recording videos for less than a year, right? And so there are some things that you learn when you are making a video. The same way, there are some things that you learn when you are running a business. There are some things that you learn when you are managing an economy. So Bank of Ghana does not have to stop the program just because they made a mistake and cost Ghanaians over $200 million. In the grand scheme of things, that money is small money. So Bank of Ghana should treat the loss as a learning curve and still maintain the domestic gold purchase program and get it better, because Africa needs to decenter American dollar. All right. Thank you for watching. And even though I can edit out the interaction with the security guy, I'm going to leave it in just because it adds to the fun of our interaction. All right. Thank you for watching. My name is Nebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics. So subscribe to